On the way, we're going to catch up with Andrew Eborn, barrister, broadcaster and futurist, to have a look through this morning's newspapers. One of the stories we'll cover is on the front of the Times this morning. The headline is Tory plot for Truss-style leader after election loss. Morning, it's James Hanson on Early Breakfast. Don't go anywhere. On the way, we'll have a look at this morning's papers with the barrister, broadcaster and futurist, Andrew Eborn.
Times Radio Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio Early Breakfast.
5:21 now on Tuesday morning. Good morning, it's James Hanson here with you between now and 6. Let's have a look at today's front pages, beginning with the Times, covering that story we've been telling you about the suspected Israeli airstrike on the Iranian consulate in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Iranian general killed as Israel bombs consulate. Is the headline on the front of the Times this morning, with a very dramatic image of the burning rubble of the consulate. Daily Telegraph this morning, stealth tax raid on 1.6 million pensioners. Tories will pay at the ballot box as more retirees than ever dragged into income levy, they say. The FT goes with... oh, no, that's yesterday's FT. Hang on. Get rid of that one. I'm trying not to give you an out-of-date headline. Front of The Guardian, Tories accused of zero progress on half of levelling up goals laid bare, they say. Front of the Daily Mail, arrest me, defiance of J.K. Rowling as she dares police over new Scottish hate crime law. We'll discuss that in a bit more detail shortly. Daily Express this morning, 10 million junk food addicts costing Britain billions. The Sun this morning, after England kit, union joke. Fury at Team GB flag, red, white and blue axed. This is sports fans who have hit out after Team GB's Union Jack turned pink and purple. There is anger at the flag's diverse design update, which follows a similar row over the St George's Cross on England's football shirt. Last night, England's football Three Lions legend Peter Shilton said nothing is sacred. And then on the front of the Daily Mirror this morning, GP appointment scandal, doctor won't see you now or any time this month as the waiting lists soar. Lots to unpack there. Let's catch up with barrister, broadcaster and futurist Andrew Eborn. Good morning.
Good morning, and always a joy to join you at this time of the morning.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the programme. Let's begin with the story on the front of the Times. It's also on the front of the Daily Mail this morning, as I mentioned. J.K. Rowling issuing a bit of a challenge to police in Scotland to arrest her over this new hate speech law, this highly controversial new hate speech law that... is designed to prevent people stirring up hatred against protected characteristics, including age, disability, race, religion, sexual orientation, and most controversially, transgender identity. Where do you see this going, Andrew?
Well, it's always interesting. Any debate about the freedom of expression is one of the most incorrectly attributed quotes ever. They attribute it to Voltaire, and as you know, I do this thing called fake or fact. They say, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. It was actually the author, Evelyn Beatrice Hall, who said that. And what it is, it's about freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences. And this new act has effectively introduced new offences for threatening or abusive behaviour, which is intended to stir up hatred based on prejudice, as you say, towards certain characteristics about age, disability, sexual orientation, transgender identity. Now, J.K. Rowling, as in bowling, is absolutely speaks out very clear in her views. And this is going to be one of the biggest tests of all for this new legislation, is whether she's actually committing an offence. Because the reality is we have to have a society where views you don't approve of or those you strongly disagree with are entitled to be expressed. And this is going to be a real test, isn't it? Because woolly language about what causes offence and so on and so forth is not helpful for lawyers or those trying to enforce the law. So this is J.K. effectively being defiant and say she's going to go to war against trans zealots. She wants to sort of test the law, arrest me, is the taunt from her sort of side. But we need to work out what's going to happen. And I think having a few precedents to calm the debate about this has got to be right.
It's really interesting as well politically how you've now got the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, wading in and criticising this. Obviously, it's an SNP law that they've brought in Scotland. Humza Yousaf, the Scottish First Minister, obviously defending it. But where this goes politically, I think, is really interesting. Let's come on to the story on the front of the Times, another story on the front of the Times. Tory plot for Truss-style leader after election loss. So this is the director of the so-called Popular Conservatives group that was started late last year, Mark Littlewood, suggesting that the next Conservative leader, assuming that is when they're in opposition if they do lose the next election, should be in the style of Liz Truss, basically arguing, yes, OK, her premiership ended after only 49 days, but that she was kind of onto the right idea, he would argue, and that it should be a free market libertarian replacing Rishi Sunak. What do you make of this?
Well, it is interesting, and what I love is with the current polls, the popular conservatism group is an oxymoron in and of itself, isn't it? Suggesting they get less than 100 seats. But this is what they're trying to look at, is trying to say, look, let's bring back somebody who can basically talk about as ordinary people, taxpayers, voters there, and get their freedoms back. I mean, that's the whole point about popular conservatism when it was launched earlier. And as they say, they're trying to basically line somebody up. The question is, who could that be? And Mark Littlewood, whom Truss nominated for a peerage after his work running the Institute for Economic Affairs, thinks tanks. He's got the 70,000 strategy, which basically telling friends that Popcorn's candidate of choice would need the backing of 70 MPs and 70,000 party members. Well, that's going to be quite a few as a percentage if the Tories lose as many seats as they're suggesting. So it is interesting. Dame Priti Patel, the former Home Secretary, was the favourite to be endorsed by Popcorn if Sunak lost the election and resigned. And there's a war going on, as one source said, and they said, we're going to win it. We need to reinvigorate the free market perspective within the Conservative Party. An interesting debate. Let's see what happens. But as I say, it is an oxymoron at the moment, but popular conservatism. Yes,
indeed. We're going to talk a bit more about this with the Sun's political correspondent Martina Bett between now and 6. Meanwhile, front of the Sun this morning, and I'll be honest with you, Andrew, I'm struggling to get too excited about this story. This is the latest in kind of sport kit patriotism rows. First of all, we had the controversy over the England flag, the St George's Cross on the England football kit, which I kind of got because they did change the colours there. This time round, there is a piece of merchandise you can buy on the Team GB website. I think it's a towel or something. And it has the Union Jack on it, but they have very, very subtly, I mean, blink and you'll miss it, tweaked with the colours. So it's ever so slightly more pink as opposed to red. And the blue kind of has different shades of it. But the headline on the front of the Sun this morning is Union Joke. Some people are getting angry about this. Does it make you hot under the collar?
I'll tell you, it's very, very simple, and this is how to put it in perspective. The flag, nobody should mess with the flag. You shouldn't mess with St George's Cross, and you mustn't mess with the Union Jack either. But the point, there's a difference between messing with the flag and coming up with merchandise which basically uses the colours from the flag and the design and so on and so forth. And this has happened for years. I mean, if you look at some of the Olympic outfits that Team GB wear, they always have the sort of red, white and blue and different shades of it in terms of that. But we need to make the distinction between all of that. What perhaps they should do is have an unadulterated flag in its original form on the uniform and elsewhere on merchandise, and then they can play around with the colours after that. But don't mess with the flag.
And then very briefly, Andrew, the Times has a funny write-up this morning about some of the April Fools we saw yesterday.
Oh, glorious. There's been Haggis Ice Cream, Scratch and Sniff wallpaper, and there was even a wonderful one about saying that the very first Woodstock Festival took place 200 years earlier in Woodstock in 1769, and one of the artists on was Vincent Furnier, which anybody who spotted was actually the original name of Alice Cooper, who was born in 1948. A few people have got into trouble about other April Fools. Michael Vine published himself doing his cycle ride, where he basically had his clothes, basically a drone, and it was smashed by a hawk, it seemed to be. I've seen the footage. And a lot of people complained and reported him to the RSPCA, and all of that was a gag, basically. There was spoofs about Dulac's Scratch and Sniff wallpaper. There's an Aldi's Haagen-Dazs ice cream, or Haggis Ice, as they call it, and Sainsbury's double-decker shopping trolleys. They all circulated online. I love April Fools. In this day and age when we're drowning in a sea of disinformation, it's difficult to tell that April
Yes,
Fool's
it
Day
is.
Every day.
It is a bit difficult. I saw this morning did an April Fool, which in fairness, you could. I was watching it and you could see it coming a mile off because they had say someone who had been on the Antiques Roadshow with this £30,000 vase, and you could see that. Obviously, Dermot O'Leary was in on the joke. Alison Hammond was not. Dermot O'Leary was edging closer to this vase in the studio, and then, sure enough, he knocked it over, and Alison Hammond was a bit shocked. But
it was a great reaction.
Yes.
Well done, Alison.
Yes.
Hilarious.
So fair play. Andrew, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, James. You take care.
That's barrister, broadcaster and futurist Andrew Eborn there.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.